Hey guys, happy Sunday. It's Sunday, April 26th. As promised, once just put together a quick little video on, what I'm looking at for the week, all the events, right? It's the last week of April, so there is a lot going on, right? As far as earnings, Wednesday afternoon after the close, we have Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, and Google. Obviously, four big names that are going to influence the movements within the market. And then Thursday after close, we have Apple as well. Some other names that would be important, right? Just to get a pulse of the economy, Coca-Cola, and then Friday we have a lot of the oil names like Chevron and Exxon with earnings. What's funny is, with the bags, obviously their earnings are going to be important, but what people are going to be paying attention to the most is, what they say about capex, right? Are they increasing capex? And that will obviously, probably trigger some moves in some semis and data center names. Um, Obviously, semis have ran quite a bit over the last week, but over the last 3 weeks, I should say, and we'll get into that. And then as well, a packed week when it comes to macro events, a lot of data, but most importantly is Wednesday with FOMC, Powell giving his last presser, and we'll see if he is hawkish or dovish and how the market reacts to it, if they simply ignore it. All right, just something to be mindful of. Um, and then kind of going in here to the charts, Bitcoin looks, it's it's tightening up here between the 8 and 21 week. Has obviously kind of been rejecting up here. So we'll see what happens when futures open in a couple hours. But if Bitcoin could get past this level, obviously looks good for continuation, which is going to push a lot of the high beta names. Probably keep an eye out on MSTR. Coin has been kind of weak, honestly. It's this 212 level for coin has been a pretty solid wall, but if Bitcoin could get through that, breakout, obviously look at coin and MSTR. I would personally look at MSTR more. Um, the markets as a whole obviously have ran quite a bit here since the lows at end of March. So there are some gaps here. There are obviously we don't need to necessarily look at the indices because there are names with relative strength, regardless if SPY and QQQ pull back. But QQQ obviously had a massive week with all the semis and Intel earnings on Friday, pushing higher. Right. I still think the best risk reward is going to be something like this, where we come back and test the 8 day, flag out for a little bit and then go higher, or at least on SPY. What I'm still looking forward to, like go like long, like max long, kind of so to speak, is to come back and test this previous all-time high area of 697, and then go higher from there, right? But overall, obviously looking strong. But I think you know now's not the time to be chasing, right? You want to let's get a pullback. We kind of got one here on Thursday. Qs were obviously, it's funny, they were kind of inversing each other, right? One day was SPY was stronger, one day Qs were stronger. Obviously, because SPY has the has financials and other sectors in it, and Qs is primarily focused on tech. IWM looks pretty healthy up here. Friday's candle, not the best, but if we could get a retest down here of like the 272 level for IWM, I think that sets up for like higher. Oil is something to keep an eye out on. Oil does look like it's gearing up for a leg higher, right? So if we see a rotation where the semis cool off because they ran so hot, like look, so from March 30th to here, SMH has been 40%, 150 points, right? Would look to get some sort of consolidation or pullback on SMH, right? What is that going to mean as far as some of the other names? AMD, obviously very extended up here. Congrats if you caught it from down here, but this isn't a place that you want to be chasing, right? Look for it to come back and consolidate before taking the next leg up, especially with being it the last week of the month. I'd look for a lot of the funds to take profit on these big moves that we've seen. I know we were in Intel on Friday, and we're kind of playing that the earnings gap up, and got get moved, got chopped up, and ended up coming back up. Um, I'd look for Intel. We'll see what happens here tomorrow or open, but I'd still look for Intel to kind of come back here and look to consolidate, um, maybe around like the 78, 74 area, right? Some other names, right? So as mentioned, there are some big earnings this week. Typically, I'm not a fan of like jumping in pre-earnings, but a lot of these charts, like in Amazon, you know, they're looking to rip higher, right? So I would think Amazon goes higher on earnings. Google, no comment, because I can't have a comment because I work there. Microsoft in a big spot. If this one's set up pretty good. Like I think if we could have a good earnings, we get a bounce back at least to this 440 area. Netflix looks like shit, right? I think Netflix is ultimately going to come back down to the lows at some point, over the next month or two. And then Apple has earnings on Thursday. This one probably a good one to keep eye out. I know obviously a lot with everyone getting Mac Minis for their Claude bots and whatnot over the last quarter. We'll see what their sales have looked like, but overall, I think the chart. Emails here. There's my emails. I think the chart looks ready for higher. Mhm. Sorry, that's not what I want. That's what I want. Yep. Reclaimed all key moving averages. I think Apple could be, if we could get back up to like this 273, 274 area, go higher. Obviously, this area has kind of been, you know, hard resistance, right? People have been able to short it last week. Nvidia ripping face right now. Obviously, had that large consolidation. We don't want to see is kind of like a double top look here, where it comes up into this like 212 area and ends up coming back down, right? So you want to see some sort of strong move through here. Obviously, Friday had a massive move on the heels of Intel's earnings, but yeah, especially with all the earnings coming up this week and talk about capex. Nvidia is going to be key to watch. Avgo, Broadcom is going to be a big one to watch. I think TSM as well, right? But these names have ran pretty hot, right, since over the last month, 3 to 4 weeks, right? So this has ran almost 100 points. Again, we'll look for some sort of consolidation in the semis this week. Not necessarily weakness, but it could offer a good opportunity for a pullback to short potentially. Some other names I'm looking at over the week. AXTI, I have shares here, but I think this is, especially with the talk of capex and increased data center spend. I would keep eye out on all these photonic names. AXTI is one I like. It's one of my favorites. It's sitting right at the 8 day. I think this is gearing up for a move towards 100 here in the next couple weeks. CRML, have a small position in the 10K account. I'm probably going to look to add size to this in my main account on Monday. If we could get a pullback into this 8 day, look at June cons again, probably like the 1250 cons, for a pushback, up to 15 and over the coming months, probably look at, I think it's going to come to the highs as well, right? We'll see some sector rotation, we'll see where the money's going, but Trump rocks might be back, and I think CRML looks pretty good there. Nexa, another one that I have a small position in, but see here on the 15th, I had highest volume ever, like literally blew out any volume. So let it tighten up here. Would look to get in here as well, with larger size. Some names that I want to get into on the long side. Obviously, ARM had its huge move. About that, but I think CoreWeave and Nimbus are setting up, for entry. They did look kind of weak on Friday. The pullback. If we could get a pullback to the 21 day or UNR the 8 day, that's something I'd look to enter on Nimbus. Probably like June calls. CoreWeave the same. Love to get into CoreWeave if we get a pullback here, like a 105 to the 21 day. That would be great. EOS, we got, I think it was like 300%, 400% on Friday. Obviously, shit management, shit ER, but play the charts a little bit, and we're in. If we could fill this gap, or at least 50% of the gap here, to like the $9 level, it offers a great risk reward, especially if you can hold the 50-day up here. On the short side, looking at Tesla still, I think as long as it stays under this 380 level, right, I would actually look for a break underneath 370 next. If you could get a break under 370, I think that triggers the next leg down, probably back to sweep out these lows. And some energy names that are setting up pretty strong. CEG, massive day on Friday. I'll probably look for this to consolidate a bit, and look for a long entry, right? It did reclaim all key moving averages. Everything is turning to the right side here, for upward momentum. GLW Corning, I think they have earnings on Tuesday. So this looks like it's, when cup and handle, looks like it's ready to kind of blow out post earnings, but I'll keep an eye out on that. Some other data center names, AEIS, let this tighten up here off the 8-day. AMD is mentioned, massive gap here, big runner. I would look for this to pull back to like the 300s probably this week, honestly. We'll see what happens with a lot of like the Iran news. I haven't been paying attention because I've been out of town, but again, see what happens with futures and kind of play everything based off of where the futures open, right? The new week opening gap. If we get a gap up, we'll look to short that. If we get a gap down, we look to long it, right? That's the standard playbook. A name that is kind of caught my attention last week, doesn't have options. It's just commons, but it's Watt, WATT, and this looks good. We definitely try to get in here for commons on any kind of pullback. It has a lot of room up. You can see the trend spine is ever since it's flipped green over here in in February. Ever since it's flipped green, it's just been riding it up, right? So let's see, since January 30th, 272%. Right, so strong names, kind of under the radar, not like don't want to find the crowded trades. NEU is one that we're trading back like in January. Yeah, January. Obviously, pulled back here in March. I think this, let it tighten up here, catch it off the 8-day. I like this for higher. My top watch this week is definitely going to be HIMS. It's been strong. The narrative has changed. I know, like, oftentimes you could play it weekly, but I think that this is a name I'm going to try to get into with, decent size here. If we could catch it off the 8-day or a break over 32, right, was kind of where I look to enter long. Probably look at like June, like June $35 calls or $33 calls, where I'd look forward to run up to like the 40s up here. VST, another name that's caught my eye. Obviously, EMAs are curling up. Probably, massive green day on Friday. Would like to catch it off either on a pullback or a break of the highs. And here probably look at like 160. Like June. Oh, they have earnings coming up. A lot of these names do have earnings coming up, so gotta be mindful of that. Obviously, you're gonna be paying a premium when it comes to contracts. MSCR, as mentioned, if Bitcoin could break out here, kind of get over the highs, get into the 80s. MSCR is one that I think is a laggard, and we could probably see 200 really soon and quick. Some other names. Avgo, I mentioned. AOSL is an interesting data center name that's been really, really strong. Any pullbacks or retracements here into the 8-day would offer a great entry. You could see this, and it's just ran like crazy, right, over the last month. So we'd expect to get some consolidation in a lot of these names that have run hot over the last 3-4 weeks, to provide entry for the next leg up. As far as again, going back to the markets as a whole, I really want to see a pullback to the previous all-time highs, and that would make me feel more comfortable about sizing, having large size on longs here right now. But I guess again, just want to provide an overview of kind of like what I'm looking at this week. Cipher has been annoying in this 1950 area, right? He keeps rejecting this. So until it really breaks out over this 1950 and holds it, I don't see a reason to enter it. Iron's definitely been a lot stronger. It broke out here, let it flag a little bit off the 8 day. I don't think we catch that long. And I'll probably look at, I mentioned Amazon's one that I think could have a good earnings and rip higher. I might look to enter Amazon before earnings, just light size. But my guys, well, yeah, let's have a good week. Um, I'll just feel free to ask any questions in chat and size appropriately, right? If we made a lot of money over the past couple weeks, don't give it back. Be smart about it. And yeah, thanks. Have a good one, guys. Later.